They told you that to succeed you must want more, that to win you must cling tighter, that to secure anything, love, power, respect, you must hold on as if your life depends on it. That's the lie the world feeds the weak. Because in reality, the more you cling, the more you bleed. Need is not strength. It is weakness disguised as ambition. And those who learn to release, to walk away, to let go without hesitation, become far more terrifying than the ones who grasp desperately at every opportunity. Picture a negotiation table. On one side, a man is leaning forward, sweat on his forehead, nodding at every demand. His voice cracks as he insists how badly he wants the deal. On the other side, his opponent reclines comfortably, arms crossed, face cold, unmoved by pressure. He doesn't need this deal. He can walk away in silence, and that single possibility forces the other man to fold, to compromise, to hand him victory without lifting a blade. At that moment, the calm one controls everything. Not because he spoke louder, not because he fought harder, but because he did not need. In the game of power, the paradox is simple yet brutal. The less you need, the more control you have. The one who can release is the one who rules. Letting go is not surrender. Letting go is strategy. And once you understand that law, you stop being the one who begs and you become the one who decides. The law of detachment is the first truth most people refuse to accept. From childhood, you're told that success comes from holding on with all your strength. Hold on to opportunities. Hold on to people. Hold on to dreams until your knuckles turn white. But Machiavelli would have laughed at that advice. Because the moment you reveal how badly you want something, you've already surrendered power to the one who can take it away. Need is leverage, and it never belongs to the person who shows it. Think again of the negotiation table. Imagine two sides locked in silence. One side fidgets nervously, tapping the pen, over-explaining their position. They beg, they justify, they try to convince the other person why the deal must happen. But every word is a chain that tightens around their own neck. The more they reveal, the more they need. And the more they need, the weaker they become. Now picture the opposite. The man who sits back, his silence stretches the room like a knife. He doesn't fill the air with excuses. He doesn't reveal his desires. He waits, and that waiting creates pressure. Humans hate silence. We fear uncertainty more than we fear rejection, and so the desperate one starts to fold, lowering their price, conceding their ground, just to escape the unbearable weight of the void. The deal closes, but not on equal terms. It closes on the terms of the one who needed less. This principle applies everywhere, not just at the table. In love, the one who craves becomes the one who is controlled. You've seen it. Someone who texts endlessly, checking where their partner is, begging for reassurance. At first it looks like love, but soon, that desperation begins to rot the bond. The clingy one loses respect, becomes predictable, becomes a burden. Meanwhile, the one who can let go, who can step back, becomes the mystery the other chases. Their absence fills the partner's mind more than their presence ever could. Absence is domination. In work, the same law is ruthless. The employee, terrified of losing their job, sacrifices everything, working unpaid overtime, tolerating humiliation, never speaking up. They cling to the position, and in clinging they make themselves replaceable. Their fear tells the boss they can be bent, reshaped, discarded. Meanwhile, the employee who can let go of fear, who knows they have value beyond a single paycheck, is treated with caution. Their detachment forces respect, because when you can walk away, you are no longer a servant, you are a player. Even in society, this law reigns. The person desperate to control everything is the one most easily controlled. They hover over every detail, paranoid about every outcome, but their obsession is visible, and it becomes a leash others can pull. Think of leaders who tried to micromanage every corner of their kingdom. History remembers them not as powerful rulers, but as anxious tyrants, who collapsed under their own desperation. In contrast, the strongest figures are those who step back, who allow space, who show they are not shaken by the loss of control. Their calm terrifies everyone else. Machiavelli himself warned of this centuries ago. He observed that power does not belong to those who cling, but to those who are willing to vanish. He advised rulers to disappear at the right moment, to retreat without seeming defeated, to cultivate absence so that desire for them only grows. Detachment, then, is not passivity. It is a cold, deliberate tactic. It tells the world, I don't need you, you need me. And once that message is clear, every interaction shifts. Remember this, every negotiation, every relationship, every game of power boils down to need. Whoever needs less wins, and the ability to let go, calmly, strategically, without fear is the blade that cuts away the opponent's leverage. The law of detachment is not a suggestion, it is the foundation of control, and the ones who master it stop being players at the table. They become the table itself. If detachment is the law, then love, work, and society are its battlegrounds. These are the arenas where most people lose, not because they lack talent or intelligence, but because they expose too much need. They cling, they beg, they fear losing what they believe defines them, and in that fear, they hand over the very power they crave. Take love, the most obvious battlefield of all. Everyone has seen it play out. One partner becomes the chaser, the other becomes the prize, the one who clings, sending constant texts, obsessing over every silence, demanding reassurance, believes they're proving their love. But what they're really proving is dependence, and dependence is the fastest path to being disrespected, because the truth is harsh. The more available you are, less valuable you become. The partner who dares to let go, who leaves silence after an argument, who doesn't fill every gap with explanation, is the one who becomes a mystery, and mystery fuels attraction far more than desperate presence ever could. In love, the paradox is brutal. The one most afraid of losing is the one who loses first. Now look at work. Here the law of detachment reveals itself with even greater cruelty. The employee who fears losing their job will endure anything. They stay late without pay, accept unfair criticism, swallow humiliation, and tell themselves this suffering is loyalty. But in truth, it is servitude. Their very fear signals to their boss, I own you. And once you've sent that signal, your value collapses. You're no longer an equal. You're expendable. Contrast this with the worker who knows their worth, who doesn't fear walking away. That employee chooses their silence carefully, stands firm when pushed too far, and never hides behind desperation. And because of that, they are respected, even feared. Detachment in the workplace is not laziness, it is leverage. And then there's society itself, the largest and most merciless stage of all. Look around you. People who spend their lives chasing control are always the ones most controlled. They micromanage every detail, try to monitor every move, and in doing so reveal their paranoia. And paranoia is a weakness the world exploits. Consider the insecure leader who tries to clamp down on every rumor, every whisper of opposition. Their desperation makes enemies bold. Their fear turns into the very weapon that destroys them. Meanwhile, the leader who steps back, who appears unmoved, who shows they can let events unfold without flinching. This is the figure others hesitate to cross. Calmness, not clinging, is what makes people bow their heads. It's the same in everyday social life. The person desperate for approval, laughing too loudly at every joke, inserting themselves into every conversation, soon becomes the clown of the group. They are tolerated, not respected. But the one who can stay silent, who doesn't beg for attention, who can vanish for a time and return without explanation, that person becomes the center of curiosity. People want what they cannot easily have, and absence again becomes domination. Machiavelli saw this law centuries ago, but we see it every day without realizing it. In love, the one who clings is chained. In work, the one who fears is owned. In society, the one who obsesses over control is the one most controlled. Detachment isn't coldness for the sake of cruelty, it's survival, it's power, and it's the only way to escape the invisible leash that fear wraps around your neck. So ask yourself, in your love, in your work, in the eyes of society, are you the one who clings, or are you the one who dares to let go? Because the answer to that question doesn't just define relationships or careers, it defines whether you are prey or predator. History is filled with men who proved the law of detachment, but none embody it more vividly than Julius Caesar. When most think of Caesar, they imagine the conqueror, the man who crossed the Rubicon, the ruler who declared, "I came, I saw, I conquered." But before the legend, there was a younger Caesar who understood one truth better than anyone. Sometimes you gain more power by stepping back than by lunging forward. In the ruthless world of Roman politics, ambition was obvious. Senators clawed at each other for influence. Generals bragged about their victories, and every man desperate for power made sure the entire Senate knew it. But Caesar chose a different path. He didn't always fight for the spotlight. In fact, he often yielded it, letting others believe they had won. He appeared calm, patient, even indifferent. But behind that mask of passivity, he was quietly building something far more dangerous, an army loyal not to Rome, not to the Senate, but to him alone. When rivals obsessed over immediate recognition, Caesar obsessed over loyalty. He knew that applause in the Senate chamber was fleeting, but the devotion of soldiers who would march through storms for him, that was eternal. So he stepped back. He didn't need to fight every battle in politics, because he was already winning a far greater war in the shadows. By letting go of recognition, he gained something more valuable, control. And when the moment came to act, Caesar didn't arrive as a desperate man begging for influence. He arrived as the inevitable force of history itself. By the time he marched on Rome, he wasn't asking for power. It was asking for him. The Senate wasn't granting him authority. It was terrified of denying him. This is the Machiavellian paradox. By pretending not to need, by letting go of the petty scramble for attention, Caesar created a void so massive that power itself rushed to fill it. Contrast him with others of his era. Men like Pompey or Crassus fought publicly for dominance, constantly grasping, constantly showing their hunger. And what happened? Their need exposed them. Their rivals learned how to manipulate them, how to play on their insecurities. They rose quickly, but they fell even faster. Caesar's secret was patience. He could disappear, wait in silence, let the others burn themselves out while he built quietly in the background. This is not passivity, it's strategy. Caesar understood the same principle Machiavelli would later put into words. A prince must know how to disappear without losing his influence. When you let go of the need to be constantly seen, you give yourself space to build true power. And when you return, your presence hits like thunder. The lesson here is timeless. Whether in politics, business, or even personal life, the one who chases recognition too eagerly loses it. But the one who can step back, who can vanish without fear, becomes a legend. Caesar's rivals wanted applause. Caesar wanted loyalty. They wanted to be noticed. He wanted to be obeyed. And in the end, it wasn't their names that echoed through centuries. It was his. Detachment is not weakness. It's not surrender. It's the coldest weapon of all, because it hides your hand until the perfect moment. Caesar mastered it, and it turned him from just another ambitious senator into the man who bent an empire to his will. If detachment is freedom, then fear is the leash that drags people into submission. Nothing strips away power faster than showing fear. Because fear is not just an emotion, it's a signal, and once others see it, once they sense it in your voice, in your hesitation, in the way your eyes dart nervously, they will tighten the chain around your neck. Fear invites control. Fear turns leaders into servants, lovers into beggars, and workers into slaves. You can see this law play out inside families every single day. Take the father who is terrified. His children will hate him if he says no. Instead of being the firm pillar of the house, he becomes the weak shadow, yielding to every demand, bribing affection, mistaking weakness for love. His fear makes him predictable. It makes him manipulable. Children learn quickly where the cracks are, and they press them until the father no longer commands respect. His love may remain, but his authority dies. Or consider the mother who fears conflict with her husband. She keeps quiet, endures injustice in silence, telling herself that peace is better than confrontation. But silence born of fear is not strategy. It is submission. The longer she hides behind it, the more invisible she becomes. The one who carries less fear in that household, no matter how cruel, will always control the one who trembles. In love, the leash of fear is even harsher. The partner who fears losing the other becomes the chase. They text constantly, overanalyze every pause in conversation, and interpret silence as doom. They confuse their obsession with devotion, but what it really communicates is insecurity. And insecurity is poison. It erodes attraction faster than betrayal ever could. No one truly respects the partner who is ruled by fear. The one who clings because they're terrified of being abandoned eventually creates the very abandonment they feared. In the workplace, fear destroys careers long before failure ever could. The employee who is too afraid of losing their job accepts exploitation as if it were normal. They work for free, endure humiliation, and convince themselves that survival is success. But survival is not power, it is enslavement, and the irony is brutal. The more you fear losing your job, the more disposable you become. Meanwhile, the worker who dares to walk away, who does not tremble at the thought of loss, suddenly commands respect. Their detachment forces their boss and colleagues to tread carefully. Fear makes you prey. Fearlessness makes you untouchable. History carves this lesson into stone. Louis XVI, the last king of France before the Revolution, had armies, castles, and wealth beyond measure, but none of it mattered, because he was ruled by fear. He hesitated. He stalled. He tried to please everyone and ended up pleasing no one. His fear of making enemies created more enemies than any decision ever could. By the time the guillotine awaited him, the people weren't destroying a king, they were destroying the trembling shadow of war. His throne collapsed not because he lacked resources, but because the world had seen the fear in his eyes. And that is the essence of fear. Once it is visible, you are finished. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he warned that a ruler must never allow his own fear to be seen. The leader who hides fear can still command, but the one who exposes it has already signed his defeat. Fear doesn't just weaken you, it writes the script of your downfall in bold letters for the world to read. Think of your own life. How many times have you given away your power because of fear? Fear of rejection stopped you from walking away. Fear of conflict silenced you when you should have spoken. Fear of losing made you cling until respect slipped through your fingers. Every time you acted from fear, you tightened your own leash. And every time someone else sensed it, they pulled. Here's the brutal truth. Fear will always exist inside you. But the difference between the strong and the weak is simple. The weak show it. The strong conceal it. The weak tremble and explain. The strong remain calm and unraidable. And in that calm they become untouchable. For in the eyes of others, fearlessness looks like immortality. And the immortal, even if only an illusion, is the one before whom the world bows. If fear is the leash, silence is the blade. The weak believe silence is surrender, but the strong know silence is strategy. In the game of power, words are cheap. The more you speak, the more you reveal. Every explanation, every justification, every attempt to convince someone is another brick pulled from your fortress. But silence, that is different. Silence is a void, and humans cannot stand the void. We rush to fill it with nervous chatter, with explanations, with overexposure, and in filling it we expose ourselves. Machiavelli himself warned, "He who explains submits." Every time you feel the urge to justify yourself, you are handing your opponent the very rope they will use to bind you. Silence cuts that rope. It turns the battlefield upside down. When you stop explaining, when you stop feeding the room with your desperation, the other side starts to sweat. They begin to wonder what you are hiding, what you are planning, what you might know that they do not. That curiosity, that unease, is where your power begins. Look at politics. The shrewdest leaders are not those who shout at every accusation or answer every rumor. They let the storm rage while they remain calm and unreadable. The media grows restless, opponents grow reckless, and then when the moment is ripe, they release a single sentence, cold and sharp enough to cut through all the noise. It is not the flood of words that dominates the stage, but the thunderclap of silence followed by one decisive strike. A ruler who knows when to stay hidden makes his presence a luxury. Absence itself becomes domination. In business, the law is no different. Step into any negotiation room and you'll see this game unfold. The side that talks the most is the side that loses. Every word they spill reveals what they want, what they fear, what they cannot afford to lose. Meanwhile, the negotiator who waits, who lets silence stretch unbearably long, flips the balance of power. Desperation has a sound, but silence has weight. The patient side forces the opponent to make concessions just to break the unbearable quiet. Deals are not won with noise, they are won with restraint. Even inside families, silence holds a frightening power. A mother does not need to scream for her children to know she is furious. A single pause, a stare across the dinner table, is often more terrifying than 1,000 shouted words. Silence plants anxiety. Silence makes the imagination run wild, and the human imagination will always create punishments more terrifying than any real consequence. In love, silence is ruthless. After an argument, the one who explains endlessly, who fills every gap with apologies and overcompensation, always loses ground. The one who remains calm, who withdraws into silence, forces the other to wrestle with death. Restlessness eats away at them until they are the ones who initiate reconciliation. Silence does not end attraction. Overexposure does. By holding back, by letting the void grow, you make your presence scarce, and scarcity always breeds value. And in the modern world of social media, the principle is clearer than ever. The people who post constantly, who reveal every detail of their lives, may get attention for a while, but they soon become ordinary. Familiarity turns into boredom. But the figure who disappears for weeks, who reveals nothing, who suddenly reappears with a single post that shakes the room, that is the figure who controls the crowd. Elon Musk can move global markets, not because he tweets often, but because his silences before those tweets make the world desperate for them. Scarcity creates mystery. Mystery creates power. Silence is not emptiness. It is a mirror. When you withhold your words, you force others to confront themselves. Their insecurity, their impatience, their fear, all of it grows in the void you create. They reveal themselves without realizing it, simply to escape the discomfort of your silence. And in that moment, you don't need to act. They destroy themselves for you. So remember this: the weak fight with noise, the strong fight with silence. And when used with precision, silence becomes not just a pause, it becomes a weapon, one that cuts deeper than words ever could. Silence, by itself, is not enough. Silence plants the seed of fear, but a seed left untended will rot. To turn fear into power, silence must be followed by precision. That precision is the strike, not constant reaction, not endless noise, but a single, perfectly timed act that lands so hard it freezes everyone watching. This is the rhythm of power: silence to build tension, strike to unleash terror. History remembers the masters of this rhythm. Take Cao Cao, the warlord of China's Three Kingdoms era. He was infamous not because he struck often, but because he struck rarely, and always without warning. For years he could watch silently as his rivals tore each other apart. He would endure insults, betrayals, even humiliation, letting others believe he was weak or forgiving. But when the moment came when an enemy crossed a line, his response was merciless. One night, one battle, one swift execution, and his enemies vanished as if they had never existed. The soldiers who followed him did not love him, they feared him. And that fear was loyalty more powerful than affection could ever buy. Stalin played the same game centuries later. He was a ghost in his own government, often silent, letting rivals circle each other like wolves. People underestimated him, believing he lacked decisiveness, but Stalin's silence was camouflage. When he finally moved, it was like ice breaking beneath their feet. Opponents who had felt safe for years were erased in days. His terror did not come from constant attacks. It came from the unpredictability of his strike. You never knew when it would fall, only that when it did, there would be no escape. This law applies in modern work as well. A wise leader doesn't nitpick every mistake, doesn't criticize employees daily. They wait, they watch, and then when the evidence is undeniable, they act once, decisively. One meeting, one termination, one sudden promotion or removal. That act lands harder than 100 small complaints ever could. Because it's rare, it carries weight. Silence builds suspense. Precision makes it unforgettable. Even in personal life, this rhythm decides whether you command respect or lose it. Imagine someone mocking you in public. If you react instantly, shouting or scrambling to defend yourself, you've lost. You've shown insecurity. But if you remain silent, eyes steady, letting the mockery fall flat in the air, you've planted unease in everyone watching. And then, at the right moment, maybe later, maybe in private, you deliver one cutting remark, or you walk away coldly. That single strike will echo far louder than any emotional outburst ever could. Negotiation is the same game. The side that talks endlessly loses leverage, but the side that waits, lets the opponent talk themselves into weakness, and then drops one decisive line, that's the side that owns the room. A sudden act of standing up, a firm refusal, or even walking away from the table can reverse the entire balance of power. The strike doesn't need to be violent, it only needs to be decisive. This is what most people misunderstand about strength. They think power is about constant aggression, about shouting louder or striking more often. But frequency dilutes force. A hammer that falls every second becomes background noise. A hammer that falls once, without warning, splits stone. The weak exhaust themselves reacting to every slight, every insult, every provocation. The strong bide their time, conserve their energy, and deliver only when the impact is maximum. Think of music. The silence before the climax is what makes the explosion powerful. Without silence, sound has no weight. Power works the same way. Silence plants anxiety. The strike plants terror. And when you master the rhythm, knowing when to stay silent and when to strike, you stop being human in the eyes of others. You become a force, a storm that cannot be predicted, only feared. So never mistake silence for passivity, and never confuse the strike for rage. Together they are the most dangerous rhythm of all, and only the one who controls that rhythm becomes untouchable. Family is the place you are told to feel safest. The world insists that love is unconditional, that blood ties erase the struggle for dominance. But Machiavelli would sneer at such naivety. He knew what history proves over and over again. Family is not an escape from the game of power. It is where the game begins. The language may be softer, the mask may be love, but beneath it all, power works its silent machinery. Look at the royal families of Europe, where love was rarely more than a tool. Brothers poisoned each other, mothers exiled their sons, uncles plotted against nephews, all under the banner of family. For centuries, dynasties stained their castles with blood, not because of hatred, but because of thrones. Even Caesar, whose trust in Brutus seemed unshakable, discovered too late that blood is no shield from betrayal. Et tu was not just a cry of shock. It was the eternal warning that family can wound deeper than any stranger. But this game is not confined to history. It lives in modern homes, in ordinary families. Consider the father who insists, "I only want what's best for you." On the surface, it sounds like love, but often it is power disguised as guidance. His vision of best is his own unfulfilled dream, imposed on his children as duty. The child who resists feels guilt, shame, the crushing weight of disobedience. The leash is not iron, it is love, and that makes it harder to escape. Or take the mother who sacrifices endlessly for her children but never lets them forget it. Each meal, each gesture of care becomes part of a silent ledger. The child grows not in freedom but in debt. Every decision is haunted by the phrase, "After everything I've done for you." This is not nurturing, it is emotional control, a power play masked in tenderness. Even siblings, those supposed equals, are often rivals in disguise. Beneath laughter at the dinner table lies competition for approval, inheritance, recognition. The elder demands authority simply because of birth order. The younger rebels, trying to break free from the shadow. Arguments flare, not just over trivial matters, but over status. Who is respected? Who is favored? Who carries more influence within the family unit? Marriage, too, is rarely immune from these laws. The partner who gives everything, affection, compromise, sacrifice, believes they are securing love, but in reality they are eroding their value. In any relationship, the fully dependent one is the one most easily despised. The spouse who withholds a piece of themselves, who maintains an air of mystery, who does not yield every inch of independence, is the one who keeps the balance. Love without boundaries is not love, it is surrender. Even the modern workplace adopts the language of family. Companies say we're a family here to soften the edges of exploitation, but Machiavelli would remind you colleagues are not kin. They are allies only as long as interests align. The moment those interests shift, the so-called family dissolves. Loyalty exists only while it is profitable. The day you fall, the family will not catch you, it will move on. So what is the lesson? Machiavelli does not tell you to cut yourself off from love. He does not demand you sever every bond, but he warns you, do not mistake love for immunity. Affection is real, yes, but alongside it always flows power, subtle, disguised and relentless. To ignore it is to blind yourself. The wise see through the emotional coating to the structure of control beneath. They know when to cherish genuine affection and when to sever ties that have become cages. History shows that family can be your shield, but it can just as easily become your prison. And unless you learn to look at it with cold eyes, you may spend your life chained not by hatred, but by the weight of love turned into leverage. Ask yourself, in your family, are you the one holding power, or are you simply the pawn bound by invisible strings of guilt, duty, and fear? Work is sold to you as a meritocracy. From school onward, you're told that if you study harder, work longer, and outperform others, you'll rise. But Machiavelli would laugh at such optimism, because the workplace is not a temple of fairness. It is a battlefield of perception, and the crown rarely goes to the most capable. It goes to the one who knows how to shape how others see them. Think of the medieval courts, Machiavelli observed. The halls of Florence and Rome were filled with men competing for the ruler's favor. Did the most talented survive? Rarely. It was the one who made the king feel they were indispensable. The clever courtier did not flaunt his skills openly. He concealed some, revealed others strategically, creating the impression of mystery and necessity. The king believed he could not rule without him, and so he wrote, "Replace king with CEO," and the game is the same today. In modern offices you see two types of people. The first are the grinders, tireless workers who believe effort alone guarantees recognition. They stay late, produce more reports, answer every email, and yet they wonder why promotions pass them by. Then there are the strategists, people who rarely overextend, who carefully choose when to speak, when to stay silent, when to reveal just enough to look irreplaceable. They may not work harder, but they work smarter, and inevitably they rise. Why? Because perception is more powerful than effort. The one who controls the story about their work controls their value. If you reveal everything, if you make your labor cheap and predictable, you become replaceable. But if you hold something back, knowledge, skill, or even availability, you create scarcity, and scarcity breeds power. An expert who doesn't attend every meeting, who doesn't flood the room with words, becomes someone whose presence feels significant when they finally do speak. One sentence from them weighs more than 100 from others. Even silence becomes a weapon in the office. In meetings, notice who talks the most. They often look busy, but in truth, they bleed information. Their eagerness shows what they want, what they fear. Meanwhile, the person who stays quiet, who lets others scramble to fill the air, builds an aura. People begin to wonder, what are they thinking? What do they know? That uncertainty transforms into respect. It's not the words you say, it's the silence that surrounds them that creates weight. And then there's withdrawal, the ruthless art of walking away. The weak believe leaving a job is failure. They cling to the paycheck, even when it becomes a leash. But the strong understand that retreat, when timed correctly, is power. It tells the world, I am not trapped here, I choose where I fight. Machiavelli once wrote, a wise man always chooses his battlefield. Do not let others choose it for you. In work, this means never being so afraid of losing a position that you accept humiliation. Sometimes the coldest and strongest move is to walk out, not in rage, but in calm silence, because nothing unnerves an employer more than realizing the employee they thought they owned was never theirs to begin with. The truth is, careers are not ladders. They are chessboard, and most people spend their lives as pawns, moving forward step by step, believing obedience leads to promotion. But the ones who understand perception, those who know how to hold back, when to reveal, when to retreat, become players of the entire board. They are not being moved, they are moving others. Competence may get you hired, but competence alone will never make you powerful. It is strategy that elevates you, the strategy of silence, scarcity, and selective revelation. In the end, the workplace is not about who does the most, but about who makes their presence feel indispensable. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. We are taught to believe in friendship as a sacred bond. Movies, novels, and childhood promises all whisper the same story, that a true friend will stand beside you no matter what. But Machiavelli would tell you a different truth. He would tell you that loyalty lasts only as long as interests align, and when interests shift, as they always do, friendship turns into rivalry and allies turn into enemies. Look at history's most famous betrayal, Julius Caesar and Brutus. Caesar trusted him like a son. He believed blood and loyalty could withstand ambition. But when Brutus saw power dangling within reach, the bond dissolved. Love and trust shattered with a blade. Et tu, Brute was not just Caesar's shock, it was his mistake made visible. He forgot Machiavelli's law: never put absolute trust in anyone, because even those closest to you carry knives, hidden behind smiles. This law plays out everywhere. In politics, today's allies are tomorrow's enemies. Politicians embrace for the cameras, smiling wide, promising eternal cooperation. And then months later, one leaks secrets, one tears the other down, one seizes the advantage. Interests change, power shifts, loyalty evaporates like smoke. Betrayal isn't the exception, it's the rule. In business, it is no different. Strategic partners collaborate until their paths diverge. The moment one side sees more profit in betrayal, they switch. Colleagues share coffee, trade stories, joke together at lunch. But when a promotion opens, masks drop. The friendly colleague becomes the ruthless competitor, and suddenly, the one who trusted blindly is left bleeding on the floor of corporate warfare. Even in personal life, friendships rarely survive the cold test of reality. Friends celebrate your successes when they are harmless to them, but succeed too much and envy grows. Fail, and they may comfort you for a while, but when you fall too far, many quietly step back. People remain loyal only while you are useful, fun, or beneficial to them. The day you have nothing to give, many disappear. What you thought was loyalty was often just transaction dressed in warm language. Machiavelli does not tell you to live in paranoia, distrusting every smile. He tells you to live prepared, to accept betrayal as inevitable, so that when it comes you do not collapse in The wise do not cry when friends turn on them. They calculate, they turn betrayal into fuel, into lessons, into stepping stones. They know that trust without limits is weakness, and that survival belongs to those who keep part of themselves hidden. The strategy is simple but ruthless. Keep allies close, but never close enough to destroy you. Share enough to maintain bonds, but never so much that you become dependent. Trust, but never fully. And always watch for the moment when interests begin to shift, because that is the moment loyalty cracks. In the end, betrayal is not tragedy, it is law. History, politics, business, and personal life all repeat the same pattern. Ask not if someone will betray you, ask when, and under what circumstances, and when it happens, be ready to act. Because the one who expects betrayal never trembles when it arrives. They smile coldly, already one step ahead. All the lessons lead to one truth: real power does not come from force, wealth, or titles. Those things can be taken, stolen, or destroyed. Power lives in something quieter, something harder to see. It lives in detachment, in the ability to need less, to let go without fear, to walk away without trembling. Think back to everything we've seen. Silence plants anxiety. The strike plants terror. Betrayal is inevitable. Families disguise control with love. Work is a battlefield of perception. Love itself collapses under the weight of desperation. Every story circles back to the same law. The one who craves is chained. The one who lets go is free. Machiavelli understood that the world runs not on fairness, but on fear and need. And he saw that the one who creates need in others and shows none of his own becomes untouchable. You may think power lies in dominance, in aggression, in always pushing forward, but the truth is colder. Power belongs to the one who can vanish, who can disappear without losing their influence, who can walk away and make others fear the emptiness left behind. In love, this means the moment you stop fearing loss, you begin to attract respect. Your silence carries more weight than words. Your absence makes your presence valuable. The partner who is not afraid to leave is always the one who controls the bond. In work, the law is the same. The employee who knows they can survive without the job negotiates from strength. The one who fears losing their position surrenders their dignity piece by piece until nothing is left. Detachment clears your vision, fear clouds it, and clarity is what lets you choose your battlefield wisely. In friendship, detachment strips away illusions. When you stop believing in eternal loyalty, you stop being blindsided by betrayal. You prepare, you adapt, you use loss as fuel instead of a wound. You stop expecting permanence and start navigating reality. Detachment is not emptiness. It is not cold indifference. It is strategy. It is choosing not to show need because showing need is the one weapon your opponent can always use against you. When you show that you can let go, when you prove that your value does not hinge on their approval, you cut away their power to manipulate you. You become dangerous. And this is the paradox that frightens the world. The less you need, the more others need you. The less you chase, the more others chase you. The less you explain, the more others hang on your silence. Detachment creates scarcity. Scarcity creates value. And value creates power. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still chained by need? Where are you too dependent, too afraid, too eager to explain? Is it in love, where fear of abandonment makes you cling? Is it in work, where fear of failure makes you accept humiliation? Is it in family, where guilt keeps you bound? Or in friendship, where blind trust leaves you vulnerable? The answers will not be comfortable, but they will show you where you are still a pawn. And pawns are meant to be sacrificed. Machiavelli did not write for those who wanted comfort. He wrote for those who wanted to rise, and his message is clear. Stop clinging. Stop fearing. Stop explaining. Let go, because when you master the art of detachment, you stop being at the mercy of others. You become the storm that others must navigate. You become the silence that makes the room restless. You become the absence that others cannot ignore. In the game of power, the one who needs least controls most. And once you understand that, you will never beg, never tremble, never explain again. You will not be the one who fears losing. You will be the one they fear losing. And that, above all else, is true power.